Welcome to the Listening Lounge. I'm Abby, audiologist and business owner of Hobsonville Hearing. One of the best parts of my job is the incredible people I get to meet every day in the clinic. So once a month, I'm going to interview guests and share their unique stories. Now let's jump into this month's episode. Welcome to episode 5 of the Listening Lounge. I'm very, very excited to introduce Hilary Stichbury to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Abby.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you so much for coming on. So Hilary, you have got to be one of the most glamorous people that we've ever had in the clinic.
Oh, well, that's so kind of you to say.
Tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, well, I think I'm quite a simple person. I am happily married to a beautiful man and have an adorable, beautiful son who's 16 years old. I'm a writer, and I think writing is something that's always been, writing and words and anything to do with books has always been fascinating for me. That's where I find my joy and where I lose time. So, and the other place is fashion. So that's, you've mentioned that already.
Tell us a little bit about your career.
I left school in the early 90s. And so when I was choosing my degree, there was no creative writing program at the time, which was very sad to me. And there are creative writing programs in every university now. And so, that's what I would have done. But instead I went with something else language-based and studied foreign languages, Russian and Italian, and briefly German, but that wasn't a love connection. So that's the degree I hold. And so post that I found that, when you come out with an arts degree in foreign languages, it's tricky to get employed directly in a field informed by that education. So I've done things like editing, marketing, writing, what else? For a while, I explored the area of or the industry of journalism. That was really interesting for me in the space that I was working in, which was kind of long form research-based articles about I think it would be called human interest, which is a term I don't like, but I guess I was interested in the human condition, the human mind, and did some fascinating articles, but in the end, journalism, it wasn't a great fit for me, and I'd always wanted to do creative writing, and so I decided to tackle my kind of greatest ambition and my greatest fear, I guess, in writing, and so I spend my days doing that, and the other half is I help my husband with his business, which I really enjoy too. He's an artist, and so we both really enjoy doing
both creatives.
Yes.
I've read some of your journalist pieces.
Oh, okay.
And you are such a beautiful writer.
Oh, thank you.
You can tell there's a creative writing background,
Thank you. That's so nice of you. And I guess the thing about them was that I used to spend time kind of grooming each article, usually a month.
Wow.
And, for journalists who, where that's their main source of income,
Time is money. Yeah.
Right? Time is money. They might get only a day to work on that. And so, I felt like I was really lucky.
That's very cool. Tell us a little bit more about your family. How did you meet your husband?
Oh, that's quite a fun story, actually. We, in my final year of university, I moved into a flat in Whitaker Place in the city, right beside the university. It was university apartments, and I was having my flat interview, and in walked, the front door opened, and in walked a guy with big kind of hairstyle like the guy from The Cure. I've forgotten his name, the lead singer from The Cure. Very big kind of bird's nest hair, and a black leather jacket and a painting under one arm. And he didn't look
painting under one arm.
Painting under one arm.
Sounds like a French film.
It does, right? He didn't.
Robert Smith is who you. Yeah, Robert Smith. I've just googled him. Yeah, I'm getting
Robert
the image.
Smith.
Yeah,
Robert Smith here. And he didn't look to the side, didn't say hello, just walked straight through into his bedroom, closed the door behind him. And I thought, I like that guy. Anyway, I moved in and we got on really well and fell in love, had a summer romance. And then I decided to go my own way. And at the end of that, and we didn't see each other for 7 years.
What?
But I was in Italy and London for a lot of that time, and he was in New York and London, and then came back here. And I dated, but never found anyone that measured up to what I found in him. So when I came back, I was driving down Queen Street and I saw him standing at the traffic lights waiting to cross. And so I gave him a little toot, and he waved in motion for me to pull over, and I did, and we chatted for a minute, and then he asked me if he could have my number. And I said, I don't give out my number, but I'll take yours. And so after 6 days, which I kind of deemed a right amount of time to say, I'm not that keen, but I am interested.
You have so much self-control.
It was too long, looking back. I rang him and he said, I was just thinking about you. And that was that.
He'd been thinking about you the whole time.
Well, I've been thinking about him too.
I love that. Wow.
Yeah.
Serendipitous.
Yes. Yeah.
7 years apart.
7 years apart, and then we've hardly slept a night apart since.
I love that.
Get on very well.
What were you doing in London? Tell us about that.
London was an adventure, I guess, for me, and for the reasons that so many Kiwis.
Rite of passage.
Rite of passage.
Yeah.
Exactly. Again, hard to find work with the Russian and Italian. And so I thought I would have fun and work in fashion for a moment. And so I found that there was a boutique in Hampstead that had some beautiful clothes. And they said, come in for a day and work, we'll feel how the fit is. So I went in and had the best fun, loved it. And at the end of the day, they said, would you like the position? I said, yes, I would. And they said, the pay is $3 a week. So low that I couldn't afford to take the job. So I worked in an investment bank, Citibank.
Wow, that's quite a different role.
Yes, it was. And they were extending lines of credit to retail banks in Europe. And so that was actually fascinating for me. I'm still not sure I completely understand it, but it was a great thing to do.
And you said that you worked in fashion. So what did you end up doing?
Well, when I got back from London, I decided to take a break from sort of words-based stuff and have a bit of fun. And so I just worked in a store which no longer exists called Keith Matheson. And it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I enjoyed myself.
That's so cool. And tell the audience about your book.
Okay, so I started my book during that first big lockdown, 2020, and I thought, I'll smash this out in a year, and I'm still going on it. I've made a huge amount of progress. I've got a couple of drafts under my belt, and I'd say I'm sort of 3/4 of the way through the process. I'm really lucky because I found a sort of, I guess it's a private writing school that a lecturer in the US in Boston set up, and I knew her already, and so she invited me to join.
Wow.
And so I have a writing community there that I've never met, but there are sort of an optional 3 or 4 classes you can attend per week, and she's so thorough, and you submit excerpts of your work every few weeks. And so I've had some very accomplished eyes on my work, I guess, which has really helped me with, direct me. And I think because it's my first book, I'm learning how to write a book as well as writing this book. And so I'm just so grateful to have the input of all of the people, the lecturer herself, and all the other students who are also so talented that some days, well, I don't feel like that anymore. But at the beginning, I worried that.
I remember you telling me about this, the imposter syndrome aspect.
Yes, I had
awful.
It was nerve-wracking. I had it twice. The first time was when I was training to be a journalist, which was sort of 8 years earlier. And I researched schools around the world and ended up joining a program at Harvard Extension School, which is, I guess, so there's the kind of Harvard main campus, and then Harvard Extension School is, it extends classes to students around the world via Zoom. And that was an incredible experience, but I had a major case of imposter syndrome.
How did you work through that?
I worked really, really hard. I worked all the time to kind of, in a sort of perfectionistic way. Yeah. Well, it did end up being toxic. Yeah. But I did really well because of it. And I was really happy with that because I guess I got everything out of the class that I could. But the next semester I promised myself I wouldn't, work so crushingly hard. And I just worked between 9 a.m. and 3 o'clock while my son was at school. And I got the same marks.
Good.
So that was really interesting. Good lesson.
And what is your book about?
It's about a young woman in Brooklyn, New York, who... I'm trying to think how to say it without giving everything away. Yes. She, I guess, is at a crossroads in her life when one of her parents is dying of a stroke, and she of the complications, I guess, of the stroke, and so she has to reevaluate and kind of discover herself, let's say. So I'm really enjoying that.
I can't wait to read it. You and I've connected a lot over books
we
and
have.
What we've read and share what we've been reading.
Well, I hope one day I can bring you a copy.
Gosh, that'd be so great. I'm so excited. What's your time frame looking like? I know there are so many deadlines with writing a book.
For finishing, for sending it to a publisher.
Sending it to a publisher.
I feel like mid next year will be the latest, but I would love to send it earlier. It sounds like a long time, but for me in writing, that's short.
I'm just impressed that, all of us in lockdown were just Netflix and chilling, and you're thinking, I'm going to start a book. I'm going to write a book.
Well, I'm
so impressed.
I'd been saying to my husband for a long time, I want to write a book. And I think I'd said it for so long that he'd got to the point where he was like, okay.
Oh.
Right. And sort of maybe stopped thinking that I would. And so I started, and I didn't tell him. Yeah. I didn't tell him until I'd been writing it for a month and realized that I wasn't going to stop.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Did you find lockdown was good as a creative, you and your husband?
It was amazing for us both.
I'm just envisaging him, walking into that flat and closing the door. I'm assuming he's quite introverted.
He is introverted.
So lockdown would have been good.
It was really good for him, yes. He sort of, He hardly noticed the difference, I
Wow.
think, because he's dedicated. He's very, I think there's that idea out there that discipline is a springboard for creativity. So if I provide myself with structure, then, I've got more chance of being able to achieve. And so he lives by that, and he religiously goes into his studio at 8:30 every morning, no matter how he feels, more or less, and he works all day, apart from a disgustingly long lunch that we have every day.
I love that. It sounds different from what I'd expect a creative to operate like.
Right.
That structure,
And it's so important. I think there is an idea out there that you should respond to your inspiration. But I think inspiration, speaking for myself, inspiration in creativity comes often as a consequence, as sitting down and putting myself in front of the work and starting to think about it.
Yeah, I love that. That's very cool. Tell us about your hearing. When did you first notice that there was a problem?
In my 20s, I noticed very small things, like I had to have the TV higher than other people, or when I had it right for me, they would come into the room and say, "Wow, that's loud." That kind of thing was all I noticed. And I think if I had gone to an audiologist, I probably would have been diagnosed with mild hearing loss only at that time. It was in my late 30s, or I think around 40, when I was given some advice by a locum doctor that I think potentially I misinterpreted what he was saying. He said, when in winter, when you feel clogged in your nasal passages, just give your nose a really good hard blow. And, a really good hard blow. And I'm a conscientious person, and I tend to sort of take things to the nth degree. And so I did give my nose a really hard blow, and I felt a click in my left ear, and everything, it was the equivalent of the room going dark. I felt like someone had just put their hand over my ear, and it felt very muffled. It was really frightening for me, actually, and I sort of knew that something bad had happened. And I was actually too afraid to go to the doctor. I know that sounds ridiculous, and I should have gone straight away.
No.
But I couldn't face the news that I damaged myself. So when I did eventually go to the doctor, they confirmed that I had blown a small bone out of place in my left ear. It was painless, but so obviously my hearing in my left ear was much worse after that, and I never recovered. And so when I came to you, I had such a wonderful experience, start to finish with you. So I'm really grateful for that. And you let me know that I had mild hearing loss in my right ear, but moderate hearing loss in my left.
You went through quite a journey prior to that, though, right? Because you'd had COVID, I think. Was it COVID, or was it the nasty flu?
I had COVID followed by the flu.
Yeah.
And I had a theory that it wasn't hearing loss per se, but that my hearing was being affected by a long-term low-grade middle ear infection. I also got that information from the same locum doctor.
Yes. Yeah.
And
they diagnosed you with like glue ear, essentially, didn't they? Fluid in the middle ear region.
Yeah, he didn't diagnose me, but he had a sense that might be what was going on. And so I went on a course of doxycycline, a long-term antibiotic, to clear the theoretical infection. And I had a hearing test with you before and after, and the results were exactly the same.
How did that make you feel?
It put my mind at rest. Looking back, it would be easy to say, well, I just shouldn't have bothered doing that. But I think what happened for me when my own theory was proven wrong, it helped me accept that I have hearing loss. There's no changing it. How do I move forward? And that's what you helped me with. And it was a real relief because finally, rather than saying, oh, I must get that middle ear infection sorted, I was getting some real help.
And we went on quite a journey.
We did.
With your hearing rehab. So you initially were really interested in lyric, and you're a very petite person. And what that meant, unfortunately, was your ears were just a little bit too small for lyric.
Yes.
But going on that journey helped you to be more open to a different style of device. Tell us about that.
Yes, that's absolutely right. I think lyric is a wonderful product, and if I could have, if my ear canals had been suitable, I would have loved to have tried it, or have used it. But I think my main reasons for wanting it were that I felt it would hide completely from the outside world the fact that I had hearing loss. And I still felt quite sensitive about people knowing back then. Hilariously, I think people knew anyway because I had to say pardon quite a lot. So, no need for the sensitivity. But at the time, I felt that if I could have an invisible hearing aid, that would be great for me. That didn't work out, but you introduced me to the Beltone, which is the smallest hearing aid that has a
behind the
ear part to the device. And I am actually so happy that we chose that one because, even over the lyric, because it has features that you can't have when you have to fit the whole device inside your ear canal. So, I can listen to a podcast through my hearing aids. I can answer a phone call by tapping my hearing aid twice. And, it doesn't matter if my phone is all the way across the room. I've answered the call and I can talk to someone. I love that. So anything that I play on my phone, Spotify, music, like I said, podcasts, anything, voice messages from friends, it all comes through my hearing aids.
Yeah, quite a change from lyric. So yeah, just for reference for anyone who doesn't know about lyric, it's put in the ear for around about 3 months. It has a built-in battery, no smartphone compatibility, nothing like that. So quite a 180 to go from lyric to a behind-the-ear option.
Yes, absolutely. And those things are fun and great.
Yeah.
But the main thing that has just literally changed my life is the fact that pretty much no matter where I am, I can hear everybody. And I wasn't, until I got hearing aids and went about my life with hearing aids, I had no idea how much I had been missing out on.
Tell us more about that.
Well, in the beginning, when I remember the first day driving home, I closed the car door and I was like, oh my God, that's so loud.
Yeah. And
I can remember, I was driving and I could hear the road under the car and I could hear. So I got home and I said to Peter, the world is so noisy. This is exhausting. And I actually was exhausted for a couple of days.
It's very overwhelming. Yeah.
It was, but it was also amazing because, so there's this kind of, I think, thing that happens with not hearing other people, or that happened for me, which was that I thought, okay, I'll just always say pardon if I don't hear. And then it reaches a point where you sort of know intuitively you've said pardon so many times in that conversation that if you say it once more, it might be irritating to the other person. And so you feel you do start, I did anyway, I started feeling self-conscious. And so I wasn't asking people to repeat what they said as many times as I wasn't hearing. So I was missing so much, which meant that I couldn't participate.
Yeah.
I was losing my personality. I mean, not to myself, but I was losing being able to display my personality around other people.
It's that enjoyment, right? So you're a very social person.
Yes.
You go out to a lot of events
Yes.
and you talk to a lot of important people in your work and your husband's work, and you were really lacking your confidence in those environments, weren't you?
Yes. I mean, and it's funny because, as a person, I felt confident. So I felt confident in myself and my abilities, but there was that link. Hearing is a link to the outside world.
Yeah.
It's a link to the other person. And I had lost a lot of confidence in my ability to hear. I hadn't stopped attending functions or events, but I had my anxiety was higher. And I had countless situations where somebody would say something and I wouldn't hear it, but I felt that I'd said pardon too many times. And so I would just do that thing where you smile or nod. I had no idea. They could have been confessing to me they were a serial killer. And I would be saying, that's really nice. Yeah, so I remember one time I was at I was at a party actually, and it was late, and everybody had got to the dance floor, and there was this woman that I was really interested in getting to know, and this happened twice on two separate occasions actually, two different women, and we were on the dance floor dancing, and she was bending down and talking into my ear, and I think, no exaggeration, I probably would have heard 1 in 10 words. I had no idea what she was talking about. And as I explain this to you, I'm remembering more and more times where that happened at events, where there was a possibility of making a nice connection with a person, and I just couldn't do it because I couldn't hear enough to participate in the conversation, enough to build a connection. So,
do you remember how you felt in that moment?
Highly anxious.
Aww.
And like hoping the person wouldn't realize, and a desire to get away as well as a desire to hear them. Not a nice experience, but one that was very common for me.
And thinking about the events that you've attended since you've had your hearing devices fitted, how has your life changed?
I just don't even think about my hearing anymore. I don't have any self-consciousness or anxiety. I trust that I will hear. Yeah. I've been in some really noisy situations. One that happened quite soon after I got my hearing aids was we had family over for a big family lunch. I think there was 10 or 12 people, and there was so much noise. You know what families are like.
Yes.
Lots of laughter and just big sounds. And I remember standing on one side of the kitchen. Someone was talking to me on the other side. She was standing a long way, on the other side of the kitchen. And there were people between us talking. And I could zero in on her and hear everything she said. And I couldn't believe it. Yeah. And that's now it doesn't amaze me anymore. Yeah. I just expect that. But at the time it was just incredible to me.
That's so cool.
It's so cool, yeah. And I'm so enjoying going out with my friends to busy restaurants. But another thing that I used to get that was actually really sad for me is that my son and I, every morning, we get up early, so he has to leave quite early to get to school. So we get up sort of, 6:30 and spend the morning. I'd make him breakfast and he'd eat breakfast, tell me what he had on, and just a really nice time together, and then drive him to the bus stop. And I was feeling really anxious about that time because my son would say things and it was really quiet environment, just the two of us. But it sounded like I could hear he was speaking, but I couldn't pick out any of the words. Like if he was looking down into his breakfast, for example, it would just sound like, I'll make the sound. It sounded like, that's how it sounded. I had no idea. And so I'd say pardon pretty much everything he said. And I just felt like that must be really irritating.
Did he ever say anything?
He was so patient. I mean, he amazed me. Yeah. And he really understood that it wasn't my fault. I was doing my best. But I felt bad that I was putting them in the position where they couldn't be natural. They had to speak unnaturally loudly. They had to think about whether they were facing me, things like that. They couldn't just let go and be themselves. And now I see them doing that, and I love that.
And how have those mornings been since?
I love those mornings. Yeah, it's a really special time for me. And I think, when he's out there in the big wide world living his life, I'll always remember those beautiful mornings.
Aww, I love that.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to others with genetic hearing loss? And we talk about genetic because you're very young, so your hearing loss has got nothing to do with your age.
Yes.
It's genetic, and it's so common. I'm seeing so many more younger people coming into the clinic, and I don't think that the prevalence is higher. I think that this generation are just so much more open to intervening in hearing loss and actually treating it and being proactive about their health.
How fantastic that they are. My main advice is, if anyone feels they have a problem with hearing, get tested straight away and don't suffer. Rejoin the world. Take advantage of the incredible technology that's out there. It's incredible and it's discreet. And take away one problem that you can remove from your life.
Yeah. You were really mindful about discreetness. Has anybody noticed your hearing devices?
No one has noticed, or no one said anything anyway. But as time has passed and I feel more and more comfortable, I will tell people. I make jokes about it. At the hairdresser, I have to take my hearing aids out because there's water. And I just laugh and I say, I'm deaf as a post. Without them, you're all going to have to yell now. Aww. These hearing aids, I can answer phones. I go into a big spiel about the advantages. And I joke that, I'm part robot.
Bionic woman.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah. I like to tell people because I've had lots of experiences where I'll tell people who are in their 20s, sometimes late teens, and they'll say, I wonder if I have a problem. I feel like I can't hear either. I must go and get tested.
It's so important, isn't it?
It's great that they, I feel like it's great for them to start thinking that, yes, that's an option. There's something that I can do to change this.
And it's important that they have role models as well.
Sure, exactly. Yeah. And that was one thing I didn't have. I thought that hearing loss was something that happened to you when you were elderly. And so for me, going and getting tested and getting hearing aids felt like I was admitting that I was old, or I felt it would age me somehow. And I've found the opposite, that because it's not a problem, I can join in. I feel so positive and excited to be back in the world. And I'm just realizing that this is not an uncommon problem, as you said.
Totally. Yeah. Well, Hilary, thank you so much for joining us on the Listening Lounge. I have to say I'm super, super excited to read your book. All the best with getting that completed and published.
Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me on. I've really enjoyed chatting with you.